The Hey Eddie podcast is brought to you by Need to keep something inside a tomb? Try super heavy tombstones. Our stones weigh over 1,000 pounds, and once you roll one of these bad boys in front of a tomb, nothing is getting out. Guards, optional. Our stones are absolutely, positively, 100% unmovable. In fact, we're so confident, we guarantee that whatever you put in that tomb will stay in that tomb forever. Why is my manager waving at me? What do you mean Sunday? What happens on Sunday? Super heavy tombstones. We are apparently going out of business very soon. Our forever guarantee does not apply to the Son of God. This is the Hey Eddie podcast. I'm your host, Cousin Michael. The Hey Eddie podcast is dedicated to helping kids like my cool cousin Eddie learn about the Bible and learn important lessons about God, about Jesus, and about life. The Bible is indeed God's gift to kids, a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. On today's episode of the Hey Eddie podcast, we're going to be studying Mark chapter 15, verses 21 through 47, in a lesson titled, The Darkest Day. This lesson will teach us that on the darkest day in history, Jesus willingly gave his life for us, and through his death, the way to God was opened for everyone. Our key memory verse is Mark chapter 15, verse 39. And when the centurion, who stood there in front of Jesus, saw how he died, he said, "Surely this man was the Son of God." Hey Eddie, today's story is different from the others. It's not a funny story. It's not an exciting adventure. It's the saddest, hardest, most important story ever told. Today we're going to talk about the day Jesus died. But here's what I want you to remember before we start. This isn't the end of the story. It's the darkest part, but the sunrise is coming. And sometimes the darkest night comes right before the most beautiful morning. Ready? Let's go. After Pilate handed Jesus over to be crucified, the soldiers led him out of the city. Usually, a condemned man had to carry his own crossbeam, the heavy wooden bar that his arms would be nailed to. But Jesus was so weak from being beaten and whipped that he couldn't carry it anymore. So the soldiers grabbed a man from the crowd, a guy named Simon from a place called Cyrene in North Africa. He was just walking into the city, minding his own business, when the soldiers forced him to carry Jesus' cross. Mark tells us Simon was the father of two sons named Alexander and Rufus. Why mention their names? Probably because they became Christians later, and the people reading Mark's story knew them. Simon didn't choose to carry that cross, but that moment changed his life forever. They brought Jesus to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. Someone offered Jesus wine mixed with a drug that would dull the pain, but Jesus refused it. He was going to face this with his eyes wide open. And then Mark says it simply, without any extra details, and they crucified him. Crucifixion was the most horrible way to die that the Romans could imagine. It was slow, it was painful, and it was meant to be public, to scare everyone who saw it. The soldiers divided up Jesus' clothes and gambled to see who would get what. Even his clothes were taken from him. It was 9 o'clock in the morning when they nailed him to the cross. Above his head, they put a sign announcing his crime. It said, "The King of the Jews." The Romans meant it as a joke. Look at this pathetic king. But they didn't realize they were telling the truth. Jesus really was the king, but not the kind of king anyone expected. On either side of Jesus, they crucified two rebels, criminals who had fought against Rome. One on his right, one on his left. Remember when James and John asked to sit at Jesus' right and left when he came into his glory? Well, here was Jesus' throne, a cross, and on his right and left, not his closest friends, but criminals. People walking by hurled insults at Jesus. They shook their heads and laughed. "So you were going to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days? Save yourself! Come down from that cross!" The chief priests and teachers of the law joined in. "He saved others, but he can't save himself. Let this Messiah come down from the cross so we can see and believe." Even the criminals being crucified next to him insulted him. Everyone mocked Jesus. Everyone abandoned him. He was completely alone. But here's the thing they didn't understand. Jesus could have saved himself. He could have come down from that cross. But if he saved himself, he couldn't save us. The mockers said, "He saved others, but he can't save himself." The truth was, he saved others because he wouldn't save himself. At noon, right in the middle of the day, something strange happened. Darkness came over the whole land. For 3 hours, from noon until 3 in the afternoon, the sky went black. It was like the whole world was mourning, like creation itself couldn't bear to watch. And then, at 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani." That's Aramaic, the language Jesus spoke. It means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" These words come from Psalm 22, a song King David wrote hundreds of years before. It's a song about feeling abandoned by God, about enemies mocking, about incredible suffering, and it ends with hope and trust in God. But in that moment, Jesus felt something no one had ever felt before. He was carrying the weight of all the sin in the world, and for the first and only time, he felt separated from his Father. Some people standing nearby heard him and got confused. They thought he was calling for Elijah, the prophet. Someone ran and grabbed a sponge, soaked it in sour wine, and held it up to his lips. "Let's see if Elijah comes to save him," they said. But no one came. And then, with a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last. At the moment Jesus died, something amazing happened in the temple. There was a huge curtain inside the temple, a thick, heavy veil that separated the holy place from the most holy place, where God's presence lived. Only the high priest could go behind that curtain, and only once a year. But when Jesus died, the curtain was torn in two from top to bottom. Not from bottom to top, like a person tearing it, but from top to bottom, like God tearing it open. It meant that the barrier between God and the people was gone. Because of Jesus' death, anyone could come close to God. The way was now open. And there was one more surprise. A Roman centurion, the soldier in charge of the execution, had been standing right in front of Jesus watching him die. This man had probably killed many people. He had no reason to care about another Jewish criminal. But when he saw how Jesus died, he said, "Surely this man was the Son of God." Wow! All through Mark's gospel, the disciples struggled to understand who Jesus was. They argued, they doubted, they ran away. But here at the cross, a Roman soldier, an outsider, an enemy, looked at Jesus and saw the truth. Some women who had followed Jesus from Galilee watched from a distance. Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and Salome. They had served Jesus and cared for him. Now they could only watch. As evening came, a man named Joseph of Arimathea stepped forward. He was a member of the Sanhedrin, the same group that had condemned Jesus. But Joseph had been waiting for the kingdom of God. He believed in Jesus. Joseph did something brave. He went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. That took courage. He was risking his reputation, his career, maybe his life. Pilate was surprised Jesus had died so quickly. He checked with the centurion to make sure. Then he gave the body to Joseph. Joseph bought linen cloth, took Jesus' body down from the cross, wrapped it carefully, and placed it in a tomb cut out of the rock. Then he rolled a huge stone across the entrance. Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of Joseph watched. They saw exactly where Jesus was buried. The story pauses here. The sun sets, the Sabbath begins, and the world holds its breath. So what does this mean for you? First, Jesus could have saved himself, but he didn't. He had the power to come down from that cross, but he stayed because he loved you more than he loved his own life. Second, the curtain was torn. Because of Jesus' death, nothing separates you from God anymore. You can come to him anytime, anywhere. The way is open. Third, even outsiders can see the truth. The Roman centurion, an enemy, recognized Jesus as the Son of God. It doesn't matter where you come from or what you've done. Anyone can see who Jesus really is. Fourth, It's okay to cry out to God when you're hurting. Jesus himself cried, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" If you ever feel alone or scared or sad, you can tell God exactly how you feel. He understands. Fifth, this isn't the end. The women saw where Jesus was buried. Joseph rolled a stone over the tomb. Everything looked hopeless. But the darkest day was about to become the brightest morning. The story isn't over, Eddie. Sunday is coming. This has been the Hey Eddie podcast. I'm your host, Cousin Michael. Remember that the Hey Eddie podcast is dedicated to studying the Bible and learning important lessons about God, about Jesus, and about life. Today we discussed Mark chapter 15, verses 21 through 47. Tune in soon for another episode of the Hey Eddie podcast, where we'll study Mark chapter 16. Love you, Eddie.